I just try and loosen up both the pump stations here, and I cut the tail. A lot of times it just helps keep easier to get it back out of the way. If you split it, cut it off. I mean, unless you're going to make a mount or something out of that tail, you can go ahead and skin it later. Either one, easy to do. But what I tell everybody with the, you know, like this deer, rigor set in, but always having it up is a big deal for me because my back sucks, and every year I get older, it sucks even more. So the less I have to be on the ground or bent over, so whether it's a side-by-side, a tailgate, a picnic table, a plastic table, anything that kind of gets it up in the air is always a benefit. So when you're by yourself, it's obviously always a bit of a challenge. Oh. So, but loosening that tail up, cutting around the poop pipe and the pea shoot helps a lot. And you know, coming under the skin, of course there's a big wad right there, but usually instead of trying to slice through the hair, getting around it and then coming under it and through it, I hate deer hair. It gets in the way every time. So, but the more you come up and under, and on a doe, you know, this one looks like she's pretty well dried up. I don't know if she might have had did she have a fawn with her?
No, sir.
Okay. So, and then, you know, with the leg spread situation, I just try and find a center back here, and without puncturing the stomach lining, I try and get on down either side of these hinds. Now, whether, you know, obviously an elk's a bigger, you hear that pop, and we just got a lot looser on this side. And, you know, a lot of folks, especially getting dark, maybe you're by yourself, it's always a pain in the butt. But what I like to do is make a list, and I'm going to have it typed up either before you guys depart or after. But I kind of like to make steps. It's tough to see down in here right now, but I'm just trying to get all of the meat with the ham split the best I can. Sometimes I even get clear down in the ball joint. You hear that release and see it go. It just makes everything else you're going to do a lot easier. Some people worry about the guts getting on the meat back here. It's easy to wash off, disinfect if you cut through, which who knows, we may. I'm going to try hard not to. But talking about, you know, a lot of knives will have what they call a gut hook. I don't like using that for the hair. Even if you start up here and come back, you pull a lot with it. It's best to just have a good sharp knife. And I like to have a lot of room to see what I'm doing when I get into the insides of it. This is one that I do a lot for seminars. Is the starting point of what I call the HuntChef one-man deer breakdown or one-lady deer breakdown. And when I come up through here, I try not to get too deep. And like this knife has this big flat part back here, and it helps me kind of ride on top of that stomach wall. So ideally, you know, I'm really just cutting skin and not through it and puncturing the that wall just yet, because as I said here a minute ago, I really like to see what I'm doing. And being a picky chef and butcher my whole life, I'm a little different than most, and a lot of folks are like, I'd have had that thing gutted and halfway to the truck by now, and that's a-okay. There's not a darn thing wrong with it. It's just not how I roll. I want to get the most yield out of it. I want to keep the most interior funkiness away from my end product as I can. So I like to peel away so you can really see and have an opportunity to understand what you're working with. Right. See, I've cut into the brisket there, and I'm mad about that, but nobody's perfect. So
I am.
Well, hey, I misspoke. I spoke too quickly.
There's got to be one in the grill.
Spoke too quickly.
You're lucky enough to have two tonight.
I am blessed, I guess, is really what we're saying here. So now at this point, you can really see what you're working with. You got a clear channel the whole way up. And from here, depending on where you're at, if you're on a table, you're in a side-by-side, you're on the ground in the woods, you can go a bunch of different ways. I don't have a saw with me right now, so what I'm going to do is put this guy right up against the bone here in the back, and I'm going to start to cut down each side and loosen the business end of this girl up here, so that when we get a little deeper, this comes out a little easier. And I'll take it, and again, if you try and keep the knife up against the bone and then against the bone all the way down and around, again, there's many faster scenarios, but if I have my druthers, other than hanging it and in a building and having a big bucket to pull it up and dump it into, this is kind of where I get to. So now you can see we've got some intestine coming out here, and that's a-okay.
Chef, where'd you learn this technique from?
Just kind of
Years of doing
practicing and being around, taking a lot of meat apart. Yeah. So, and the challenge that a lot of people have is they get 1, maybe 2 shots at this a year. You know, they harvest 1 or 2 deer. And, you know, so there, if you got a good heavy spine knife, you know, you can beat down through this thing. These guys have already opened up in between the Achilles and the shank, and that's great. So again, under the skin instead of cutting through the hair is just a pet peeve that I take a little more time with. And if you kind of go at it sideways first and turn the blade out. Now that's a saw, son.
That's, yeah, it's not like a...
I got a rib spreader too. You want one of those? A rib spreader?
Probably.
You got all kind of
I
fancy
think you
stuff
need one of
with it.
those now.
I need to upgrade.
Hey, they got surgical gloves.
I do this one-man deer breakdown demo a lot. I just did it for the 2 in a row for the Game Commission in PA here a couple weeks ago. For people that are really, they want to get into hunting, or maybe they want to get back into hunting, and they think they need a whole bunch of fancy stuff. There we go.
Like a rib spreader?
Like a rib spreader.
And a toothpick.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
I mean, it could come in handy.
Yep.
So, and then, you know, there's a whole nother situation to go to do the gutless method. If you're going to quarter this thing, you're deep in the National Forest or Rockies or something like that. But for most of PA, you know, you're gonna drag the deer, whether it's guts in or guts out.
So you're not worried about internal body parts, even though it's been dead, say 6 hours. You're not that concerned about getting those.
Usually, as long as you didn't puncture anything down there, you're all right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So if it's gut shot, you know, you kind of need to get to work, because everything from sepsis to a lot of other nasty stuff can get started that you're not going to deal with on your deer.
Right.
And if you could feel, or if you want to already, just even in this temperature, how cool these shanks are. Like, it's pretty surprising, right? I mean, you got a little bit of a sweatshirt on, so you know it's not as near as hot as it was, but you know, and just like if it was the first week of the velvet season down here, it was a whole lot hotter. Yeah.
Right.
Why does it keep squeaking at me? You know? So we want to make sure that we don't cut that, obviously. This Achilles back here. And come on. Oh, cut the skin. And again, this is for, you know, you're kind of by yourself. You don't have a winch. You don't have, you know, a big high building and gambrels or come-alongs or something. If you've got all that, like what Outfitters North Carolina do, then you know that's a situation that's completely different. Where'd that big old saw go? We're gonna put it to work here. Oh my! I like to get the shanks, or not the shanks, but the. Give it up, girl. Come on. Get these guys out of the way so you're not fighting them. Come on. There we go.
Yeah.
We still got our plenty going on here with our tendon. The Achilles to be able to hang it up. So there's that. So then once we get all opened up, getting the rest of the back door loosened, you know, we cut around the top and both sides earlier. Now we kind of need to get around the bottom and have a hold of all this stuff, because you can definitely, you know, again, go about this many different ways without doing the work of loosening this stuff up. But once it's loose back here, the excrement, let's call it that, deer poop, pee.
Ew.
But what you don't want to do is get too deep with the knife, because the bladder sits right in here. Nice and easy. And definitely the gut hook can come in handy here, but we've got enough action going on back here right now. Again, that big flat part on the back side of the top of this knife is a big help. And then the bottom of the rib cage, you can see that cartilage starting right here. That tells you you're pretty much in the right direction. That seam of fat in between both sides of the brisket is usually what I try and aim for. Meat up. We get to check out John's shot placement here pretty soon. And when they're up in the air, it's a lot easier to.
Shot. Very neat.
Nope. We're going to reach in, get that windpipe. We got lots of room. Get our knife up above it.
The other side.
Loosen that up. We're going to get that.
See the heart?
Well, it wasn't a heart shot. But that sure is pretty.
The heart's completely intact.
Well, I'd say he,
At least one
you demolished those lungs quite nicely, looks like, fella.
Yeah.
That worked.
And
I thought it might have been double.
working around. Well, Brian said it only went 30 yards. We got a rib spreader. Throw that in there. Let me see how this thing works.
Yeah, you look like you're struggling a little.
That's awesome. That is so
Trying to
cool.
put it above my arm.
What?
Rib spreader.
Rib spreader.
Rib
Stainless
spreader.
steel rib spreader.
Look at that. Gives you all the room to work.
I like it.
yeah, that's all right.
That's like they
Every
used,
family should have one.
that's like they used to do.
I'm not
it.
here. I ate knife.
Yeah, I try and keep it all sort of
Inside.
together. And again, you could have had this done a very long time ago, obviously. You get just a couple shots at doing it each season. So
You want a Ziploc, or are you gonna put it over? the
Huge.
Look at that.
pretty liver. We can fry this for breakfast for you guys. Put in some salt water tonight.
Coming through.
He's coming through.
So one of the other things
It just looks really big to me.
that a lot of folks don't always take, but it's pretty darn cool if you can. Can you see this web of kind of fatty looking material right here?
Mesentery.
This is what's called caul fat, C-A-U-L.
Yeah.
Wrap your sausage up in that.
Yep. You can wrap sausage in it. You can wrap backstrap in it, stuffed backstrap in it. It's really, the French term was called crepinette, and it meant that it was wrapped in something very delicate which it is. I mean, you can see through it. It's a pretty neat piece, and it takes heat really well, like to saute with it. Once you have it wrapped up, you want to smoke with it, roast with it, you want to brown with it. It'll stretch out a little bit more. And you know, one of the things with me, I mean, growing up with my granddad, he grew up in the Great Depression on a farm in Butler County, PA. So like, he would be pissed at me that I made that cut right there right now. But every little bit to make the most of your harvest, and just be one freaking cool thing you can gross your neighbors out with.
Yeah, really.
Or your kids. But that caul fat.
And
So
what do
once
you wrap
use
it?
that and you wrap
What do you wrap
cook
it in it?
Can
Sausage.
you unwrap it? I mean,
Anything.
Oh no, you eat it.
Eat it.
Slice it. Yeah.
See it, okay.
So you can see how fatty it is. All
Yeah.
that white. It's the white in here is not silver skin. It's actual fat.
Right. Okay.
Abdominal fat, and I mean it's starting to get pretty firm from getting in the air already. So you would make sure it's moist and not dried out. Lay it out. Maybe pat the inside dry with a paper towel, and say you had a backstrap stuffed roast that was butterflied and all rolled up. You'd set it down in here. Have this laid out like plastic wrap almost, and then you roll it up and use some toothpicks to get it tight, and pat that dry. Let it set up for an hour, and then I haven't just put anything with that just straight in the smoker, but I know folks that have, and it's done really well for them. Typically what I do is have a big enough saute pan to hold it, plenty of oil or butter, whatnot, whatever you're working with in the pan, brown it all the way around, start to render that caul fat, and then put it in a cooler pan, maybe on some onions and peppers, whatever, pop it in the oven, and then let that finish. You can do the same thing, you can put it with ground meat, stuffed backstrap, anything along those lines. So from here, unless, you know, there are a lot of folks, I haven't really brought myself to do it, probably just because my granddad didn't, but, you know, the lungs are not necessarily a delicacy, but there are a lot of folks, like in eastern PA, a big deal for us is what's called scrapple. There, look at that double lung right there.
Yeah, you went through both.
nice.
Somebody get a light on that for Mike for the camera, if you don't mind.
Nice double lung shot.
Double.
Nice.
Rage through the cage and double lung, Mike.
Through the boss buck.
Through the boss buck, and then
Through the boss buck.
Yeah.
Off the limb, through the boss buck, double lung,
Did you
touchdown. Touchdown.
nothing but net.
Nothing but net. Yeah.
Good
So
20.
you put scrapple or lungs in the scrapple?
A lot of, well, scrapple was made to use the
Everything else.
Everything
least
else.
desirable parts.
Right, everything
That's the
else.
whole birthplace of scrapple. So that, because when you were dirt floor poor and didn't have, pardon me, pot to piss in,
Right.
you didn't throw this out to the dogs. You were figuring out how to get that protein, those calories in your belly. So that's really where scrapple was born, to make use of. I don't know if anybody's ever really cut through a deer lung, and you know it's super light compared to the rest of the meat.
Yeah.
You can see the blood vessels that run through there, and it's almost sponge-like, you know,
It's
because
jelly.
you know they
It is spongy.
expand, you know, obviously with every breath,
Healthy
and
lungs
the
are
blood's
like
running
that.
through it and getting oxygenated and going back through. So it's as weird a protein as it is because it's so like spongy. It's typically incredibly healthy because it's the most oxygenated tissue in your body, or a deer's body
It
for that matter.
rejuvenates a lot.
Yeah.
And deer
So-
don't smoke.
So could you eat that raw?
Deer, most deer don't smoke.
Not
I
while
don't
they're
know, let's
alive.
find out.
They
You wanna try a
smoke
bite?
really
Smoke
nice
real well
afterwards.
afterwards.
You do it, I'll do it.
What is that? Raw lung meat?
Cheers.
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 Mazel tov.
Tastes a little chewy.
It'll chew.
Chewy, no flavor.
Tastes like bubble gum.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like bubble
Is
gum.
it bubble wood?
No taste though.
They're waiting for
No.
Jill to
It
spit it out.
doesn't even taste irony like liver, no blood.
Right.
Yeah, liver's
No.
definitely irony.
It needs
Go on,
a
down the hatch.
seasoning. It needs a seasoning.
Anybody else?
I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to have a HuntChef season on it somewhere, but
Oh shit! Why didn't you help? You got one in your pocket?
Hey, throw some of that honey butter on there.
All right.
So let me ask you: at what point, like, if at this point you have some angst
Angst.
about
Tell me
not
more.
having the guts out yet,
No, no reason
as
to.
far as
Just
Contaminated.
any just
Still
Well,
need it.
It's
we-
cold.
any concerns still about like after what 15-20 minutes?
so right now.
Everything's contained.
No, I mean I have. I mean, lots of people let deer go overnight. They die.
Right,
I mean, who
right.
knows how long they've been
Come back, find
expired?
them in the
And
morning.
Yeah,
And,
nothing's been
you know.
punctured. So.
Yeah, most times
now,
they
if
die
it's 95 or 100
shot.
degrees, I don't know.
Right.
But
was gut shot.
if it was gut
If it was
shot,
gut shot,
yeah.
yeah.
You know, you might want to just maybe take the hams and the back straps and the shoulders and leave everything else, because you just don't know. And
Right.
so just getting its ass up over
No.
and then dumping the rest of these guts right now. If somebody wants to give me a hand with that, would be awesome. So we're clean. We had an easy dump all the way out. We got the inside stuff we wanted, nice and clean the whole way through.
Oh yeah, yeah.
John, via the Boss Buck, made a great shot. We had lots of internal damage,
Lots of lung damage.
lots of damage,
Congealed
but
blood.
that track cleaned the whole way down. You know, even though we had a little bit of muss and fuss out here on the outside, that's just right on the bone because I already pulled all the meat back and away. You see this hip joint was already popped. So that's what I try and show people for doing it by themselves. And again, just a $40 folding plastic table works really good, and you're able to do a lot of it by yourself.
They're cheaper than a side by side too.
So the flank on the inside here, and then this piece here, this is what's called skirt steak.
Skirts.
That's the diaphragm.
Got it.
Diaphragm. Yep.
Oh, stainless.
Oh, grind it. Yeah.
Grind it.
Oh my God.
You know, if you get a big deer, you get a little bit more mass to them, but the diaphragm, aka skirt steak on a whitetail, mostly there's just not a lot there.
Nah.
But you know, don't throw it out. It's great to grind. But you know, but you're gonna have to grind. You can see that silver skin on the outside,
Yeah.
but it's not heavy. It is like the intermuscular silver skin. So usually for me, it grinds pretty good. It's not for everybody, but I see what you kill, and that's what I try and do. Did we find a nice blade for that Sawzall, Mike? All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and take her head off and the front legs. Just swing her butt back up in here. Now we're gonna swap ends real quick. Look at here, look at here,
Right?
look at here.
Acorns.
No,
Ooh, trachea worms or throat worms, what are they called? You guys want to see a big old gnarly worm?
That's
so
more
I wonder if she ate that.
More protein.
Or
No,
that
I
was-
think they live in the esophagus and then the nose.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Like
So that was right in her throat.
expeditions or,
Yeah.
So you're telling me
Bear Grylls.
Bear Grylls, yeah.
Oh,
that
yeah.
lives in there?
No, they just burrow up into it. They'll come out when it gets cold.
Yeah. First frost.
Stuff because he,
We call them wolves. They call
I
them
don't know,
wolves.
he had to get beat up a lot as a
Really?
kid because he had to eat all that crap.
It's first for me ever.
Listen,
Where'd that Sawzall go?
I think
It's a warm
down
weather of the
there.
parasite. They don't bother nothing.
Ronald didn't have that.
Take a look at that thing.
Put them in your pocket. See what it does.
So that's a first for me, Mike. We cut the trachea on this doe, and this guy was laying right here, right at the back of her
Inside.
jaw, in her throat. I have never come across anything like that before.
That's
Whoa.
the first.
All right, so who's
Show them up
No, that's the
into
deer
that
oh,
point,
there, yeah, hang on.
and then I always have them with the tripod right at the end of the table or the tailgate. Right there. I said earlier about having it up, whether it's on a table, a tailgate, or whatnot. Just saving your back, and then being able to use gravity and leverage, and always having a handle, whether it's on the skin or on the meat.
Yeah.
Thank God we're not grilling now, Mike. You guys wouldn't believe, I mean, you're all obviously long-time hunters, but the amount of people that have hunted their whole lives, but always taken deer to a processor and never, done it themselves. But with processor fees go up, they don't think they're getting enough deer meat back. They don't think they're getting their deer back. And those are a lot of the people that want to start doing home processing too. So
Right.
just on from the safety side and the picky chef side, like this hand, there's a little bit of blood there, but that knife handle is completely dry. You get a lot of people they're pulling or cutting or grabbing blood with their knife hand and slipping. I can't tell you throughout my culinary career how many people, cooks, whatever, I had to take to an ER or a urgent care or whatever for stitches because they were using their knife with a wet hand and slipped and cut themselves. So taking your time a little bit. I mean, you might have a firm grip, might not happen today, might not happen next year, but chances are sooner or later, you know, that one's gonna catch you. Gravity and a handle are your best friends when you're skinning or cutting meat. And try to keep your non-knife hand away from your knife hand. Well, so that the chunky fat that we took out of in here by the inside tenderloins, that's exactly what I do with it. So usually I'll wait until we get enough to make a mess and grind it and then put it in a heavy bottom pot and render it. So your rice tonight, I think one of the reasons everybody liked it so much was I put about 4 tablespoons of rendered deer fat in there to cook that, and there's a container inside that we'll show you guys and talk through it. But it's really that easy, especially, you know, like this deer really is too lean to get much off. Hey John, you like the hole on the other side? Where do you see this one?
He
You
just
put your fist through this thing.
That rage put a hurting on her.
There he is. Look at that hole.
Come here, and look at this hole,
Look
John.
at this hole, John. Come over here, quick.
John, get off your phone, dude. You ain't got time for that. Look at this hole.
John, come over here and look at this thing.
Look at
Get
this.
over here. Quit talking and get
You
over
can
here.
put a baseball through that thing.
2 1/4.
God,
Look at the size of that.
baseball nut. That's a softball.
Look, man.
I got 12 in.
So just after usually I come down the side of the ribs and open everything up, and that's when I start cutting on the back side and open the shank up for whenever we go to the skin. So I'll skin down till I can find the back side of that elbow, and then from there, make sure the hide's off it, and get down to the knuckle of the bone, and then again from the inside, so you're not slicing the hair quite as much, and you got a good handle on the hide, and just run it right down the back side of that shank. And when you're coming down to chest, I'm sure everybody's had smoked beef brisket. That's this slab right here under the shoulder. I'll go ahead and open that up so it can breathe and feel a little better. It starts right here under the inside of the shoulder, and that's this slab that lays right here. That's your brisket on a beef, and on a venison. So like those little cutlets we had tonight,
Yeah.
that piece here, you can peel it right off the side of those ribs from here up in behind the shoulder in one piece. You see how that grain of the meat runs real long?
Yeah, yeah.
Take a hand tenderizer, marinate it, rub it, whatever you want to do, and then get a good hot grill or saute pan, hot and fast on both sides. Take it off where it's about medium rare, maybe medium. Let it rest for a minute, and then you just slice it across the grain,
Just like a
nice
flank
and
steak.
thin, just like a flank steak. You're exactly right. You get a gold star.
You're on fire tonight, girl.
On fire. How's that old saying go, Mike? Rain on a hot tin roof? And I don't know about for you guys, but when it comes to skinning, the neck is always the single hardest part for me. It just holds onto the hide like nowhere else on the rest of the body.
Jeremy, what do you do with the neck roast? Roll it?
You can definitely bone it and roll it. You can brine it like we're going to do the bear neck roast tomorrow. And smoke it and braise it, or just brown it and braise it. I've chunked it up and browned it and braised the meat in a long, slow tomato sauce. You can grind them.
We doing the hard day, huh?
Oh yeah. So it's
gonna be so mittens in the morning.
for tonight. I think it's plenty cool that we can let it hang. Again, just fill the shank. But you know, so what I'm going to do is just make some, let's call them relief cuts here inside the shoulders to let some of that heat out. Yep. And if you were quartering this animal, you know, you just pull that off right there. Because I always like to take those briskets off, I stay pretty tight to the shoulder blade. But opening up those pockets up while leaving it on there, you see the steam just start to pop out right here. So then from there, and this is sort of like a backwards concept of if you got something in the backcountry, or you got it like Mike and I did a couple years ago. We got a nice bull elk in New Mexico, and we quartered it, chunked it up, and put it into game bags and hung it in the juniper tree overnight. It's kind of sort of the same. And I mean, New Mexico, first week of October, it wasn't like 30 degrees by any means.
Right.
So depending on how you want to process your deer, you can cut this way or not. Just right above this knee joint, as soon as you kind of stop here in the cartilage, or the bone rather, that little dimple right there, we're going to cut in. Basically start to separate the shank from the ham. And where this cut is right now, this chunk, and we'll go through this some more tomorrow, but this chunk right here on the front, which is basically the deer's quad, this is what's called the ball tip sirloin. Your bottom round on the inside here, and your top sirloin right at the top of the deer's butt here. See, this meat right here is going to go with my hind roast.
You got glands right inside of here too, right?
Yeah, there are glands and all sorts of fun deer stuff, but what I'm doing is just making some relief cuts right now. You can see how those muscle groups start to separate. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you got this seam right here. So I kind of try and hit that and get down to the femur. I mean, you cut through a muscle, it's fine. But right inside that, hear that femur bone in there?
Yeah.
So I want to let the heat out of the meat. You can see how much we cut in there earlier off that H-bone, and believe it or not, that relief cut right there is going to let a lot of heat evaporate from the meat, and we're going to do the same on this side. But if you got no buddies around and you don't have a walk-in cooler, it's absolutely a great way to, and you got just enough cool temp out. Otherwise, if it's too hot, you're going to go ahead and quarter it up, chuck it in some game bags or garbage bag, get it in a Coleman cooler or Yeti or something, and get the meat chilled. But tonight, I'm so thankful the air's a great temperature, because for me, venison eats best after it has been hung. And after hunting out of state is a really hard way to do that, because I'm pretty certain we're not allowed to transport brain matter, spinal cord, spinal fluid, and I think anymore bone marrow across state lines because of CWD and how rampant it is in so many places. Every state's got different regs. Shame on me for not knowing exactly what Kentucky says, but everybody's home state really is the issue for the destination. It's not so much where you kill the animal, it's more where you're taking it back to, crossing those state lines. And with so many people hunting whitetail, elk, mule deer, pronghorn, everything out of state, you know, if you're hunting with an outfitter that has like Ben and CJ, that's got, you know, big skin and shed operation, and folks that take care of things for you, great. But if you're hunting public, if you're hunting your cousin's place, not everybody has kind of done, you know, this sort. I think the last thing I want to take a peek at here, just to make sure I think we're going to take a little bit. So these hams, we're going to bone them out anyhow. And you can see we got some poop in there, but it's in that bone cavity. It's not out on the meat, and it's one of the reasons I try to take my time and work around it there earlier. So I mentioned the top sirloin before. and that's really this piece right here. Basically picks up where the back strap leaves off. There's a short, knobby rib bone right here. And once you feel that, everything behind it, back strap stops, top sirloin starts. So I just want to leave a little more heat out of the backside of this ham. So I'm just following around the backside of the pelvis here, staying tight to let, basically a vent, to let more heat out of the meat so we can hang it out. So let me ask you guys, anybody hang venison, age venison?
I age it. I age
Explain
it in the
yourself.
refrigerator
Okay.
in a garbage bag.
Yep. You were doing what's kind of referred to as wet aging that way. So it's wrapped in a bag, and whether it's vacuum sealed or just sort of wrapped up.
Just a garbage
Yep.
bag.
Either way.
But the temperature, I think, is critical.
Oh, it is. And then the last vent we're going to cut is right here at the top, right where the neck meets the shoulders. We're going to try and find, yeah, and that joint right there. Just pop it a little bit. Get the meat cut. Because you can feel, I mean, I don't know if anybody wants to or not, but the heat inside the top of this neck versus the outside already.
Much warmer.
It's probably, I'm betting 15 degrees different.
Wow.
Just down close to the bone like that.
Yeah.
So I say cutting those vents without, completely quartering the animal is going to do us really good tonight. And thank goodness we got cool, we got some moisture. But anyhow, on the aging side of things, while we were doing it, we do quite a bit, and I prefer to age with the hang with the skin on if I can. So I didn't know if anybody did skinless or
I think our processor
or not.
has skin.
Biggest reason why I like to leave the hide on is because the hide still breathes. So the biggest reason to age or to hang is you're getting moisture out of the meat. It's evaporating. That's why they call it dry aging.
Right.
So at my butcher shop, when I had it for a number of years, I specialized in high-end dry aged beef, like 180 bucks a pound stuff. But that's a whole different animal, high-end beef like that to, a very lean venison. But what happens is moisture leaves the meat, the muscle tissue starts to break down, in layman's terms, rot, basically. And that does a bunch of different things. As time goes on, it makes it more tender. As time goes on, it can get more of a funky, different, full, almost mushroomy blue cheese kind of taste, depending on how long you take it. But I love at least a week, 10 days, 14 days with the hide on. And so what that does is it protects the meat while it lets the moisture out. If you hang it with the hide off, all this gets really, really dry, like jerky dry, hard dry. So you lose all that. You got to cut it all off then before you can really cut it, before you can cook it and eat it. And when I do it with the hide on, the cavity's always open. I always take, it's a little bit of work, but just how I skinned it here, I'll come around and I'll take these two flank steaks out that we talked about earlier, and I'll take the two inside tenderloins out because they're really, the inside of these flanks, they're only, half inch, quarter inch thick. They will dry and basically be jerky like, chip beef, I guess. So I'll take them out, and then I'll take these inside tenders out. So the inside tenderloins, there's only two. They're small, but they're the most tender cut on the whole animal. But if you leave them in there and all that air circulate around them, you're going to lose a bunch of trim, and there's really no good reason for that. So I just wanted to touch on the aging piece while we were here. So that's kind of the start of the one-man deer breakdown thing I do. There's 1,000 different nuances you could do to it. Everybody's a little bit different, but this is what I teach a lot to folks, again, that want to start processing at home, that are new to it, that want to get into the sport, but don't know that they have the wherewithal to do so. You got a pavilion, you got a building, a garage, and you feel like it's cool enough, and you want to just get it to this point and let it hang. Maybe you're at a campground, you got it under a tent, you're hunting out of state, get it to here, let it relax, chill out before you really start sawing it apart the next morning, because you've already had a few beers to celebrate, and you figure it'll be okay till then. That's a great start too. The one-man deer breakdown for me is I just try and help people get it into pieces that's easier to work on. So once I get it home, if it's in a fridge, if it's in a cooler, in a bag, but if you have, you know, the neck, if you have both shoulders, if you have both flanks, both tenderloins, both back straps, ribs if you want them, ideally, hams, shanks, and then you have that in such more manageable pieces. You get home from work Wednesday night, all right, I got 45 minutes, I'm going to deal with one hindquarter. Then they can go ahead and do that. And I encourage a lot of people that, again, are getting started out, if they don't have a big walk-in cooler type situation, find a damn used fridge on Marketplace for 50 bucks, 75 bucks, rip all the shelves out of it, find broom handles or something like that, cut them down to where they run across like dowels and rest, and then you can put your 4 quarters, you know, hang them in there. And inside a closed door, you know, household refrigerator, that humidity is a lot higher, so you're not going to get the drying on the outside as much, and you're not going to lose moisture out of the meat as fast. So, you know, if it's on your back porch in your garage, you can take a little more time to work on it. The kids aren't fighting past raw deer meat hanging for a box of apple juice or something. You know, it's not dripping on your beer. I don't know what else I'd want to touch on there, but handles and gravity and dry knife hands are a big part of what I try and share with people too. Well, let's find us a couple baggies for our goodies and go get a beverage and listen to the rain on that tin roof, Mike. Yeah, thanks, buddy. My pleasure.